A jobless rate holding steady and an Arkansas county that's counting the bucks. Another county still can't decide whether it wants bucks from blackjack. We'll have an update. Another update, the school district of Arkansas's capital city and the question of charters, and a 200th birthday observance, an appropriate occasion to assess a media landscape that continues to shift. Arkansas Week, next.
Support for Arkansas Week provided by the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, the Arkansas Times, and KUAR-FM 89.
Hello again, everybody, and thanks for joining us for the broadcast. The continuing disputes over wagering in Polk County and the schools in Pulaski. And as the remaining statewide newspaper observes its 200th birthday, how many more local papers may have seen their last birthday? All of that in a moment, but we will begin with the Arkansas economy. Jay Barth is with us from the political science faculty at Hendrix. From the political science staff at Arkansas Tech, Chris Hausnick, Rob Moritz from the UCA journalism faculty, Wesley Brown from Talk Business and Politics. Wes, we'll start with you. You're chairman of the Arkansas Reserve Board. Anyway, we got another good economic report, the jobless rate holding steady.
You're right. Arkansas's job rate is at 3.5%, same as last month. It just shows that Arkansas has been steadily adding jobs. A little bit over 1,700 jobs were added to the economy. The economy is going strong, but the one kind of issue that we're having is the tight job market. A lot of employers can't find the necessary employees they need to fill some of their positions. So that is an issue. Also, there's also the wage issues. Wages are flat, except in one place up in Northwest Arkansas. But on the job market, that's been the one thing that has held steady under President Trump, is that the job numbers have been steadily coming down. The national job rate is at 3.6, so Arkansas is just under that at 3.5%.
And of course, this is reflected in the retail economy too, in the revenue report, which we're about 2 weeks away from.
Right, yeah, last month's revenue report, robust revenue collections coming in for the first 4 months of the fiscal year that began in January 1st. We're actually, for the state, we're in fiscal year 2020. So the first 4 months have been really great. We have a 73 million surplus right now. And, at that rate, we're probably, by the time the fiscal session comes around, they'll be fighting over how we're going to spend that. So, but you never know what can happen between now and then. Some national economists are predicting a slowdown at the beginning of 2020. So we'll have to wait and see after we're going into the all-important holiday season, where retailers are depending on getting those sales in the months of November and December. If those sales come in shorter, then that could actually cause, going into January, cause things to slow down.
And a point that you touched on earlier, and this is a lament that's been heard in public and private sectors. Mm-hmm. Wonderful jobs. I mean, good paying jobs are simply going unfilled because employers can't find the personnel for them. These tend to be pretty high skill, engineering, science.
Yeah, science and technology. Here in Little Rock, Charles Morgan, who's the former executive at Axon, he's building a new company, Private Star, over in North Little Rock, First Orion. They are having difficulty finding STEM scientists and people with computer technology type STEM type related jobs. They're having difficulty filling those jobs. So that's one sector, as you mentioned, engineering, just those high level type jobs that are difficult to fill. And people sometimes, and one of the things that's always difficult, getting people to move from the East Coast or the other states to Arkansas to fill those jobs. That's always been a difficult thing.
You got to stress the quality of life, I guess. Well, you mentioned one county in particular that's just beaming.
Yeah. Northwest Arkansas is always just kind of a outlier in the state of Arkansas. Benton County, a report came out on Wednesday. Benton County is #1 in the nation among all counties in the 355 largest counties in the United States. Their wages are up 16.3%. Their average salary now is $1,197 for the average worker in that county. That's above the state average in Arkansas is $862, and the national average is $1,095. So they're above the national average and the state average, well above the state average, and well above the other two Arkansas counties, Pulaski and Washington County.
And I think that reference to quality of life is really a crucially important point, and how Northwest Arkansas, especially Benton County, really going all in on improving quality of life, because they've had decades of real challenges in bringing and keeping those kind of high talent employees in that area, and whether it's bike trails or whether it's art, the arts community, or whether it's good dining. I mean, clearly, and it all obviously kind of comes out of the Walton family, especially the third generation of the Walton family. It's all about quality of life, and I think other communities in the state, certainly try to replicate it, but nobody has the resources to do it the way that
the amount of wealth up there is driving a lot of that, and plus they're improving the infrastructure, as you mentioned, to bring those quality people, and also you have XNA, the regional airport. You can get almost anywhere in the United States from XNA. As obviously we stated, Northwest Arkansas and a little bit Jonesboro is starting to see some growth up there, but Central Arkansas is flat, and the rest of the states in the rural communities are seeing declining population and declining number of people coming to those communities.
Well, whether to create a certain kind of job in Polk County, Chris Hausnick, remains in dispute. Certainly it has provided employment for attorneys and lobbyists. But of course, we're talking about the casino controversy. Where do we stand?
As usual, there's still two venues. The one everybody's sort of now watching is the Little Rock venue in the lawsuits. The first week in December, you're going to see at least preliminary hearings on Gulfside's lawsuit versus the Racing Commission, and then there is, I think, Citizens for a Better Polk County, who is anti-casino against the Racing Commission. You may see some movement there. Gulfside's protest about previous letters from lame duck administrators will finally go before a judge. By all estimates, it'll be interesting to see how they play out. The Citizens for a Better Polk County had a pretty big defeat. They went after the county judge in Polk County. That case was dismissed with prejudice. I can't predict what will happen, but really paying attention to what happens with the Gulfside lawsuit is where a lot of the Racing Commission angle is going to come from in the coming days.
This kind of mirrors the medical marijuana referendum. You had all these lawsuits, and what it did, it extended the time that the medical marijuana industry got implemented in the state of Arkansas, and I see that happening with these lawsuits. And until those things, and you also have, from the media side, you have the transparency issue. There's lawsuits also, or issues related to information not being provided. So I think you're going to see this may not be settled for at least a year, because with those lawsuits, it could go on. There could be appeals, and it could go on and on.
But okay, refresh us. Bring us down to the core issue, if that's possible, or issues multiple. Is this controversy rooted in a cultural resistance or a cultural conflict, or who gets the action, a political dispute, power, what?
Yes.
All the above.
It's wrapped into all of those things. Now, in Polk County itself, it is a negotiation now. Basically, I believe all interested parties recognize this employer is coming. A casino is going to be built. They recognize, as you were discussing, the state sees a revenue stream that will be new and separate from others. The question is exactly where and in what proportion of distribution of benefits. Will it be Russellville, the city? Will it be we know it will be Polk County. There's been discussions about Dover now perhaps stepping in and being a location.
Dover.
Dover is it's a small suburb,
yes,
maybe 8 or 9 miles north of the city.
And delightful. I mean, it's a wonderful thing.
Yes, but the realization is Russellville City Council and Russellville Mayor, for a variety of reasons, are just kind of, they've always been late recognizing things, late making decisions, slow making decisions. They're like, and a part of that was that you had a brand new mayor elected. He's still learning the job in January, February, March, and oh, by the way, you've got a multi-million-dollar decision to make as you're still trying to figure out how the city runs. But when it comes to dollars and cents, it's a negotiation. If it is truly out in the county gets all gets the revenue. If it's in Russellville city limits, the city gets 70, the county gets 30, and figuring out between the city and the county, where does it go? Where does it get annexed? What's the split? It's a negotiation, And last night, Russellville City Council sort of welcomed Legends Cherokee to the community. They're starting to build those bridges they could have made, say, 6 months ago. But that's what a lot of this is. It's figuring out who gets what, how much, and in what way moving forward.
Yeah. Rob Moritz, you've been watching this from just over the county line a bit.
Oh, I think that it's fascinating. I think there's still a lot of people there who just don't want casinos, and I think that that's still a driving force in a lot of it.
A lot of it, it's a generational gap.
Yeah.
You've got a small group who's enjoyed a position of power, small-moneyed, Polk County politics, who the minute the state authorized with Amendment 100, here comes the casino, you change the power structure of Polk County. And they're the ones who filed the lawsuits. They are the ones fighting tooth and nail against the casino. But it's going to be interesting. A story for 2020 is to see if there is a lasting effect. Because I think we all know inherently that you have these structures. Every place has politics and people working behind the scenes. But now it's been really sort of drug out, from a journalism perspective. It's in the light. People are sharing information and requests and things of that nature. The question is, will the casino issue of 2019 turn into the bigger political changes of 2020? Quorum court, for instance, almost all the positions are opposed for the first time in a decade or two. But will they win? Will they lose? That sort of change. Things are changing in Polk County. It's going to be very interesting to watch this play out in the future when it comes to other issues. Like you brought up medical marijuanas in the past, but they brought up things like having a wet county, changing other county level.
Goes great with gambling.
Exactly. But that's the kind of thing where...
Is there a dry one left? I might ask.
Well, I think the word we prefer is moist, but,
All right.
Just a quick point. I do think this is really heightening the attention that these governments at the grassroots really are still amateur bodies in a lot of ways, and suddenly they're meeting these big, high-dollar issues, high stakes, and they're not used to being truly transparent. They're not always used to abiding fully by the open meetings laws, et cetera. And it's really, I think, creating some challenges. And I think this case study is a really interesting one in terms of here you have a very traditionalistic county that suddenly has to deal with some very 21st century issues.
On to another issue, and it's really of statewide importance, statewide interest, statewide significance, Jay Barth, and that's the Little Rock School District situation. Full disclosure, Jay, you're an immediate past chair of the State Board of Education, a longtime board member. What are we looking at now?
Well, obviously things are still in flux a bit in terms of the transition back to local control. There has been a kind of a green light, general green light from the State Board of Education to begin to return some control to the local level through a memorandum of understanding between in which the state, the Little Rock School District, and the city would be parties. The city has said that they are willing to support, to the degree they can, the implementation of some community school models in some of the most challenged schools in the district. But there are all kinds of questions about the ultimate shape of that memorandum of understanding. Particularly kind of challenging in that MOU as it now stands is that the Little Rock School District, once it gets local control, would still be limited. Its elected school board would be limited in certain ways. In particular, it would not be allowed to recognize the Little Rock Education Association, which of course had a job action last week and continues to threaten future job actions. It also says that the Little Rock School District would not be able to engage in litigation, which is an interesting constraint on a local district, and arguably not the wisest step in the world. Also that there would be additional limitations. They could not fire the superintendent, Mike Poore. Those are some of the matters of debate, and many proponents of local control are saying that's not real local control. Mike Poore, the superintendent, was very visible this week. He was kind of everywhere this week. He did a high-profile talk at the Political Animals Club. He really, I think Superintendent Poore is very much a rah-rah guy, a big, and he very much was making the case that the Little Rock District is on its way back. It is really on the cusp of kind of getting out of some of these constraints that have been placed on the district through the state control. He also is out talking about the change in the attendance zones in the school, which is a very big deal in the district at all levels. And tied in are some closures of some elementary schools and some middle schools, junior highs, which create some real angst in the community. So a very busy week for Little Rock School District. A big kind of cloud over all of this is what is the Little Rock Education Association going to do next in terms of actions. The teachers organization, which was recognized historically going back to 1966 by the Little Rock District. That recognition has gone away now through state action, so there are continued threats of strikes. Superintendent Poore also made news with some initial sanctionings of some of the folks who were involved in some of that job action last week. So a very busy week, lots of action, lots of places, not a lot of clarity about where exactly all of this is going in the
Now, I
near
wasn't
future.
present for Superintendent Poore's presentation at Political Animals, but I noted in the printed press following morning that he seemed to sidestep gently the question of his continued tenure at the head of the district. This job would kill anybody.
His legacy coming from Northwest Arkansas, when he came to the Little Rock District was, he had that note of success behind him, and a lot of people thought he was the perfect person to come in and make those changes and continue that legacy. But that issue of if local control, usually a lot of times in these school board decisions, once they get local control, the first decision they do is get rid of the superintendent that the state has set in. So, his tenure will be I think it's an important issue, to where the school district goes. Once things, as Jay noted, gets clear, things are just really murky right now.
And he certainly came in, Baker Curris had gained a lot of popularity as superintendent. He came in, replaced Curris. There was a lot of cynicism about Superintendent Poore. I think he has performed quite ably. I mean, he is a true traditional public school guy. I think everybody recognizes the constraints he's been in, that his boss is in essence the governor, acting through Secretary Key. And so he's been very limited. And this week, I think having to punish these teachers who had taken action last week, I think it really puts him in a precarious spot with the local activists who are supporting the continued recognition of the LREA.
Yeah, need to move on, Robert, but we'll come to you first. A big celebration this past week, the Arkansas Transparency, as was noted at the top of every broadcast, Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, long and underwriter of this program, for which we're grateful. The paper or its predecessor paper, it's a hybrid now, Rob, observed its 200th anniversary. President of the United States came and spoke. Our focus, I guess, should not be just on the survival of one statewide newspaper in Arkansas, but the landscape that surrounds it, the media landscape that surrounds it.
Yeah, and I agree, I think that there is, if you look over the past 3 or 4 or 5 years, the number of small town papers across the state has been reduced significantly. Arkadelphia, Prescott, all the papers surrounding Little Rock and Pulaski County and Lone Oak, except for one independent paper in Jacksonville, that local news, people aren't just buying the paper anymore. And what the president said last night during his speech was the importance of local news, and the importance, or the importance for people to be educated, to know what's going on, and then they can make their decisions accordingly. But across the state, there have been a lot of newspapers which have either downsized, gone to twice a week or once a week, and just kind of disappeared.
Yeah, you can in the statewide newspaper, of course, is going
digital.
Going
Yes.
digital. We can only get. I'm a subscriber, and I can only get the newspaper in the digital. I can't walk to the porch in the morning, get my cup of coffee, and spread out the newspapers. So I have to look at it on my iPad. So that is a big change. Of note, the Census Bureau numbers came out about 6 months ago. It noted that in the newspaper business in Arkansas, there was over 3,200 workers in the industry a decade ago. It's half of that right now. So that tells the story of where we're going. And Rob speaks of the local news media, newspapers, Gatehouse and Stevens Media, which own a lot of those newspapers, have downsized those. Jonesboro Sun and the Conway paper, which are owned by Paxton, they are shells of their former selves. They were great small town, some of the top small town newspapers in the country, and now they have small staffs and don't have a lot of local news there.
One thing I would say is this digital version of the Democrat-Gazette, this is something that's being watched by the journalism industry across the country, across the world, basically, because it's really a transformation on how loyal newspaper readers are reading the paper. And I think, you know, it's kind of a dicey move by Walter Hussman. If it works, it really could change the way people read the paper.
You know, I have a class that I teach over at Central Baptist College, and I asked them one time, how many of you read an actual daily newspaper digitally? None raised their hand. So that's kind of as Rob said, that could be a dicey move. It could be a scary move until you do something to bring that local news to a new generation of readers where they are engaging and are interested in that local news. Then we're going to continue to see that downsize and the consolidation of the media.
Yeah, Jay Barth, this isn't just, or guys, this isn't just an editorial story, a journalistic story, a business story. It's a cultural, social, political story as well.
Yeah, I was just thinking as Wes was talking about some of those small town papers that have gone away. You know, in the aftermath of World War II, that was really where a lot of fuel for political change came from. The reform movement in the state really came out of those small towns. We all, of course, know about what happened in Garland County with Sid McNath, but it was in all those towns and it was often newspaper led. And so it has been this important force for change in this state. And the Gazette, and then the Democrat-Gazette, you know, also has been this glue for the state, which was, I think, a point emphasized last night at the event. And I think those two things of local change, but statewide community glue that these papers involved. I do think this model is very interesting. I think President Clinton made the clear point that if the newspaper war had gone a different way, that the product would have been much weaker. It would have been,
absolutely.
And
anyone disputes
we
that.
all agree with that. And he actually cited the case of the Little Rock School District, covering that battle and how, you know, Cynthia Howe is a truly amazing, you know, with how much knowledge, decades of knowledge of that issue, and how she's able to cover that in a way that is fair and clear to both sides, so that people can make their own judgments about that issue. I think is a great case study of why that's so important.
And a companion issue too here. It is what alarms a lot of people across the spectrum is the consolidation of ownership. Mammoth chain, particularly in not just in, but particularly broadcasting, hundreds of broadcast outlets owned by one.
And yeah,
one or two or
one
three.
channel, when looking at our own market, Channel 7 is owned by Sinclair, who owns, it's the dominant owner of local news stations there. And you see that. Wall Street Journal now in the hands of Fox News. All of the big, larger papers, Washington Post in the hand of Amazon. So that consolidation is changing everything, and most of these. And we saw this past week the USA Today and I think Gatehouse They consolidated. They agreed to a merger. So that consolidation continues, and noted they're going to be looking for $400 million in cuts in that acquisition. So that's going to continue what we're seeing.
Well, Tennessee, for example, Gannett owns almost every major paper in Tennessee except for the Chattanooga paper, which is owned by Walter Hussman. And all those papers have already been cut to the bone. Now that they've merged with Gatehouse, there's going to be more cuts, and there's no local coverage, or very limited local coverage in all those papers.
Okay.
I think
That's
one of the big questions is, with all these local news sources going, it's easy to get nationalized news, whether it's national newspapers, but there's, again, the local side. And what's going to fill the vacuum? What's going to fill the void when you don't have that local reporter, that local beat discussing these things in greater context?
Also, just not disparaging local politicians and council members and such, but if there's nobody there watching and paying attention, there's no way to know if there's any nefarious activity or what's going on there. Because most papers, small communities, don't even have a journalist at those meetings anymore. Elected officials dealing with lots of money.
I think there was a quote, journalism costs money, good journalism costs a lot of money. We got to end it there. Gentlemen, thanks to you for coming in. As always, we thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Support for Arkansas Week provided by the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, the Arkansas Times, and KUAR-FM 89.